Hi, we're out on a range today, and recently we did a presentation comparing 11 different types of 7.62x39 ammunition. That generated a lot of questions and a lot of commentary, creating the need for part 2, so here we are. Now, one of the things that people commented on a lot was that of our 11 different types of 7.62x39 ammunition, many people were disappointed that that did not include tool ammo. Okay, all of that ammunition was supplied by a viewer, thank you very much, and he did not donate any tool ammo, so it wasn't part of the demonstration. However, today we will include some tool ammo, to which I have to say a big thank you to Bruce and the crew at Lincoln City Sporting Goods in Lincoln City, Oregon for supplying the tool ammo. We also saw in comparing our 11 different types of ammunition that some had fairly good groups, while others had terrible groups, and many people commented on their conclusions as to why that was occurring. And a lot of people seem to think that that had a lot to do with my test firearm, this Wasser 1063. Some people speculated that the barrel was worn out. Some people speculated that the poor groups were caused by the Wasser being a very poor quality example of an AK platform. There were a couple of people who thought that the poor groups were caused by this rickety folding stock. Actually, this folding stock is pretty solid. So, we'll address some of those issues and maybe a few others today. And we'll start with, I'll put up a target, shoot it from 100 yards, prone unsupported, with my Wasser 1063, which is loaded with our tool ammo, 7.62x39, 122 grain full metal jacket spear point. Let's see what kind of results I get. So let's take a close-up look at our impacts. And here's our group. And this group shows us several things. Now let's start with these two impacts here. You can see how the bullet holes are kind of torn. And some people saw that in part 1 and speculated that that was due to tumbling projectiles. We'll talk about that in just a minute. But for right now, here's our group. And remember, this is 8 shots. Now this one that's over here, as soon as I pulled the trigger, I knew that would be a little off. This one, I don't know. But in looking at this group, we have to remember that this is a half-size silhouette. Every shot in this group, including the flyer, easily fits under one hand. So this target might tell us a lot of things, but I'm going to say primarily 3 things. 1, many people were talking about how there was something terribly wrong with my rifle. I'm going to have to go with, no, nothing wrong with my rifle. 2, a lot of people were commenting about how there was something terribly wrong with me. Well, when it comes to rifle shooting, I'm going to have to go with nothing wrong with me either. And a lot of people were asking about the accuracy of tool ammo. I'm going to have to go with tool ammo, pretty good. Now let me show you something else. In our comparison of 11 different types of 7.62x39 ammunition, we saw that they varied quite a bit in terms of accuracy. And we could come to the conclusion that not all 7.62x39 is created equal. In terms of accuracy, the worst one was the Wolf ammo. There was a lot of commentary from a lot of people saying that not only is not all 7.62x39 created equal, not all Wolf ammo is created equal. And many people were discussing how the Wolf label can have different types of ammo made by different companies in different countries, and so you're not always getting the same thing. Okay, but there's 2 sides to that. One, Just because something is made in a different place does not necessarily mean it's a different thing. As I drive across country, I can stop at McDonald's drive-thru in Ogden, get a double quarter pounder with cheese, stop at another McDonald's drive-thru in Cheyenne, get a double quarter pounder with cheese, and they're really both the same hamburger. Just because something is made in a different place doesn't mean it's a different product. So as long as you have certain standards and then some enforcement in place to make sure those standards are met, you should be able to make different ammo in different countries and have it be pretty much the same. However, when you cross an international border, having your good quality control cross with you sometimes doesn't happen. Sometimes good quality control can be oxymoronic. So it could be that different Wolf ammunition is different ammunition. So what I have is 2 targets set up, and I will shoot these from 100 yards with my Wasser 1063 with 2 different boxes of Wolf ammunition. Now, in looking at these boxes, all the markings appear to be the same, except this one is very clearly stamped Made in Ukraine, while this one is stamped Made in Russia. Both of these were made well before the war, so that won't be a factor. So I'll shoot the target on your left with the Russian ammunition, the target on your right with the Ukrainian ammunition. Let's see how they compare. And here's our 2 groups with our 2 different kinds of Wolf ammunition. Let's take a close-up look at the targets. Now here's the impacts with our Russian Wolf ammunition. And remember everyone, half-size silhouette. This is an 8-shot group that easily fits under my hand. In fact, it'll easily fit under my fist. Now when we go over here to our Ukrainian Wolf ammunition, we're seeing a significantly better group than I got in part 1 with our Ukrainian Wolf ammunition. This one really is just me. But we're also seeing a shift in point of impact. These 2 ammunitions are different. Something else we see is this impact. You see an elongated hole? Some people thought that that was evidence of bullet tumbling. Okay, if I peel this back and we look at the impact hole under it, we see that is a perfectly round bullet hole. What you're seeing here is just the paper tearing because the paper wasn't tight against the cardboard. There has been no bullet tumbling now or in part 1. Now I have one more target set up and I have another type of Wolf ammunition. This is 7.62 by 39, 123 grain full metal jacket spear point. It's labeled Made in Russia, but this is also labeled Poliformance. So I'll shoot this from 100 yards prone unsupported with my Wasser 1063. Let's see what kind of results we get. So here's our group with the Poliformance ammunition. Let's take a close-up look at it. And here's our Poliformance group, and although I can still barely cover it with one hand, it's not what I would call a stellar group. It's what I would call okay. So now I've put up a new target. I'll shoot another group with Wasser 1063 from 100 yards with our Poliformance ammunition, see if I can do any better, but this time I won't make you sit through watching me shoot it. Second group with the Poliformance ammunition, much better. At least one of these was just me. Now let's try another type of ammunition that we did not shoot in part 1. I have a new target set up, and I have my Wasser 1063 loaded with Winchester White Box 7.62x39 123 grain full metal jacket spear point. Let's see what kind of group I can get with this at 100 yards shooting prone unsupported. Here's our group with our Winchester White Box. Let's take a close-up look. Now this is an interesting group and shows us a couple of things. First, it is a pretty good group. Second, we see very little deviation in terms of windage. These two shots that are off were just me. But we see some deviation in terms of elevation. Why? Because I switched my aiming point from here to here with this particular ammunition. And it created a little bit of an optical illusion, so I had some variation in terms of the elevation of the shots. But, all told, fairly good group. Now, let's go back over to here. This is our first group of the day, remember this? Except for this one, which was definitely just me, and this one, which may have been me, again we see a really good group. Now these two groups will help me illustrate a point, but it's going to take me a couple of minutes to get there, so please bear with me. I have fired quite a few different AK platform rifles, including real live Eastern Bloc military issue AK-47s, and a few different types of commercially available versions and so on. However, this particular Wasser 1063 is the only Wasser 1063 that I have ever fired. Now, in my experience, this rifle has pretty good performance. By AK standards, very good. But it represents a sample size of 1. I doubt that I've got the only Wasser 1063 in the whole world that's capable of halfway decent accuracy, but I'm certain there are some that are a little better and some that aren't as good. But I have to presume that mine isn't magical. Now, in looking at these groups, which I would consider okay, good by AK standards, you have to remember that this is me shooting prone unsupported, with ammunition that, although it's good ammo, it's hardly match grade. So if someone else were to repeat this exercise with perhaps a better Wasser 1063, or if they were a better shooter than me, they could see the sights better than me, or they had optics, or they used match grade ammunition, or they put the rifle in a vise and took themselves completely out of the equation, could they get better groups than this? Yes, significantly so. And the point of that is, there was someone that made a particular comment, and I wrote it down because I wanted to get it right. Quote, in part, how many people out there still think that if they use the right ammo, their Wasser 10 is a 1 minute of angle rifle? Well, if under these conditions with this ammunition I can get groups like this, I find it very easy to believe that someone else could get significantly better groups. 2 minute of angle groups? Certainly. 1 minute of angle groups? Very possible. Now we're back to having the Wasser 1063 loaded with Wolf ammunition, 7.62x39, 123 grain full metal jacket spear point, made in Ukraine. and I'll shoot prone unsupported at the target on your left and see what kind of group I get again. So here's the group with our Ukrainian Wolf ammunition with its 123 grain projectile. Let's take a close-up look. And here's our shots, and they're kind of all over the place. So not a very good group. But there were people who suggested that to improve upon this, I should get an AK of decent make with a fixed stock. Okay. Here's my Century Arms AK, which has a fixed stock. I'll shoot this prone unsupported from 100 yards at the target on your right with the Wolf ammunition, and let's see if I do any better. And here's our group with our Century rifle. Let's take a close-up look at this. I'd say that's a lot better. Also, these projectile impacts where it looks like they've tumbled, no, that's just a factor of the paper not being tight against the cardboard. These are direct impacts. But our group is a lot better. So did going to a different brand of rifle with a fixed stock really make that much difference? Let's try something else and see if we can prove that. So we saw when loaded with the Wolf ammunition. With the Wasser, I didn't get a very good group. With the Century rifle, a much better group. Now what we're seeing is the group on your left was fired with the Wasser 1063, the group on your right fired with the Century Arms rifle, when both rifles were loaded with the tool ammo 122 grain Full Metal Jacket Spear Point. Let's take a close-up look at our groups. And with the Wasser, we see a pretty good group. Now, if we look at the group with the Century Arms, I fired a couple more shots because I knew that a couple of these were flyers and just me. So this is really the group. And the group, except for being in a different location, is about the same size. So what does this show us? Well, when we shot the two targets with the Wasser and the Sentry, both loaded with Wolf ammunition, we saw that the Wasser didn't perform very well with the Wolf, while the Sentry performed just fine. But when both of our rifles are loaded with tool ammo, we see that the Sentry rifle did not shoot the tool ammo any better, if anything, not as well. And this really shows us two things. One, having a rifle of decent make with a fixed stock does not help me shoot any better at all. And two, certain rifles like or don't like certain types of ammunition. Clearly the Wasser does not like the Ukrainian Wolf ammunition, while the Sentry rifle likes it just fine. And you've got to find the right ammo for your rifle. Now, something else to add. Again, we saw in part one that some ammunitions had much better accuracy than others did, and people speculated as to many reasons for that. One of the reasons that many people discussed was improper projectile diameter. Okay, this takes a couple of minutes to explain, and it comes with two very important caveats. One, please listen to this segment in its entirety before making any commentary. And two, please listen to this segment in its entirety before making any commentary. Okay, it goes like this. 7.62 rifles like 7.62 by 51, 7.62 by 51R, yes, 51R. You may know some of these by different names like 308 Winchester, 30-30, 30-06, the list goes on at Astra. But these are 7.62, so the bore is .300, 30 caliber. However, they use projectiles that are slightly bigger than that, typically 308. It has to be a little bit bigger than the bore to squeeze down into the rifling. Okay, but a lot of your Eastern Bloc firearms, like 7.62 by 54R, 7.62 by 25, and 7.62 by 39, don't use a 308 projectile. They will typically have a 311 projectile, just a little bit bigger. There may be some variation in some ammunitions, but typically a 311. And so some people were speculating that for our ammunitions that got very poor groups, perhaps those were not loaded with the appropriate 311 projectile. Maybe they were loaded with 308 projectiles. Therefore, they weren't gripping the rifling like they should, resulting in poor accuracy. Now that makes sense. However, we pulled some bullets and did some observation and some measurements with a micrometer. Now, we weren't able to pull the bullets on everything we tested because some of the ammunitions, we used them all up. But two of them that gave us particularly poor accuracy, our Soleil & Below Tactical and our Fiocchi ammunition. We pulled several bullets, tested them with a micrometer, and they all had 311 projectile diameters. So for whatever reasons that they were giving us poor accuracy, improper projectile diameter was not one of them. So the bottom line, part one generated a lot of questions, a lot of commentary, a lot of debate. I would hope today in part two we have answered at least some of those questions, dealt with some of that commentary, and perhaps settled to some degree some of the debate. So as always, don't try this at home on what you call a professional, and thanks for watching 7.62 by 39 ammunition selection, part two.